Hi, I'm Lindsay, and today we are talking about Jujutsu Kaisen Chapter 254 and 255. Okay, I just want to say that originally I was just going to be covering Chapter 254 and 255 in this video, but it takes me time to do these things, so actually it's going to be a long video because I will be covering Chapter 254 to probably 258. Whenever the next break happens and I can catch up. Hopefully it's after 258. So yes, there's my quick disclaimer. And I'm ready to get back into it, so let's get back into it. I'm going to start with 254, obviously. Yeah, so Kusakabe versus Sukuna. That's kind of what was getting set up here. And he was prepared to fight him as the only sorcerer kind of around right now. So this is the Kusakabe chapter, which I was not... This chapter was interesting. I really enjoy this chapter and the next one according to the leaks I enjoy. So yeah, let's talk about it. I'm sure people have taken their bets on how long Kusakabe would last against Sukuna. I feel bad. I somewhat expected him to just be dead at the beginning of this chapter, and I'm glad he wasn't. He had his moments, and I actually enjoyed this chapter despite the fact that everyone's saying, not everyone, but lots of people are saying JJK is just getting bad. Just wait. Just be patient. I do like to see what every character is trying, and honestly, the end of this chapter just shows us that we cannot predict what's going to happen in this story, because who in the world would have thought Miguel would show up? And he did. So we don't know. We don't know what's going on. Okay? So anyways, we start this chapter saying that this is an unthinkable matchup, a one-on-one against the strongest Sukuna, and we see that Kusakabe is using his simple domain, Evening Moon, sword drawing, and Sukuna is like, you're gonna use a sword drawing technique against me, who can just send slashes flying willy-nilly. And Sukuna, he has his arms crossed for so much of this fight. He's not really putting that much into it. So Kusakabe says that the simple domain is an anti-domain or anti-barrier technique that can negate the sure hit effect of a domain, but can't neutralize the technique itself. Sukuna starts sending slashes Kusakabe's way, and we learn that in Kusakabe's domain, his simple domain, his curse energy output will increase while his target's curse energy output will weaken slightly. And then we get this super cool Kusakabe pose, that was hard to say. And he says that he can change the programming to his simple domain, and that allows him to intercept anything that invades his domain automatically. Sukuna is actually, he's seemingly slightly impressed by his reaction timing, and Kusakabe says he can more or less read Sukuna's slashes by focusing on his movements or his curse energy. And we've seen that Kusakabe is capable of deflecting during Shibuya, the ultimate Uzumaki. My guy is strong. And as we can see, his reaction timing is on point. So Sukuna sends more slashes to him, and Kusakabe's deflecting pretty well, but at this point I'm a little concerned. And after he's like, that scared the shit out of me, and Sukuna activated his technique without moving a muscle. And once again, Sukuna's battle IQ being otherworldly. It's honestly kind of like Sukuna can read their thoughts. It's like they think it, and then he knows exactly what they're thinking. It's kind of weird. So Sukuna is like, well, guess what's next? And that means he's going to be using his world-splitting dismantle. I feel like he's just kind of toying with Kusakabe. Poor Kusakabe. So then we cut to Meimei and Nanami, the fellow first grades, talking about Kusakabe, kind of like a continuation of why they think he's the strongest. And we're getting more added to their personalities as well in these little scenes, and they're very interesting. So the first one, Meimei is camping with Wiwi. Did not expect her to be an enjoyer of the outdoors. And I find it interesting that someone so obsessed with money and the finer things in life enjoys camping. So this would also be a super cute moment if she wasn't such a creep with her brother. because honestly, this panel's pretty adorable. Like, it's pretty cute. Like, they both seem pretty happy. They look like they're camping enjoyers, and she's probably like a massive money saver as well. So she probably is like living below her means on purpose most of the time. And I mean, that's the vibe I'm getting anyways. Juxtapose that with Sir Rich Kento Nanami himself having the door open for him from a nice car, living the bougie life. I wonder if Gege is aware of how fangirls see Nanami and he's kind of like feeding into it a little, or I wonder if he's aware of any of the fanfics about Nanami. Because, yeah, once again, he's kind of leaning into that part of him that the fanfics do, this like rich Nanami side. Not complaining though. I'm enjoying it. So anyways, Mei says in terms of raw strength, her and Nanami would be above Kusakabe, and Nanami is like, I can't really envision him winning fights, but more so that I can't see him losing fights instead. Then Nanami monologues, and Mei paraphrases it all, which I appreciate. Nanami says that Kusakabe has mastered the sword, but he has an abundance of technique variations, and is capable of using barrier techniques, and he has so much knowledge that serves as a foundation for his greatest strength, which is his analytical ability, which we have seen a lot in this whole arc. He has strategized, like, with all of them, and he's really good at doing it on the fly. He has been like a master planner, and he's very useful in that regard. Mei basically says that he's a veritable Swiss Army knife, the type of sorcerer you want with you on a deserted island. So that's a great way of describing it, honestly. He has a lot going for him. Then we get to see Gojo going out for ice cream, and I think Gege enjoys drawing Gojo more now that he's dead. And he's like, well, just being able to use a simple domain is impressive, and beginners usually need a binding vow for something like that just to use it. And Miwa adds that she has to have both feet planted firmly on the ground for simple domain to work for her. And also Gojo like takes a picture of his ice cream, I think. I mean, I don't know. And then proceeds to just suck it out of the cone like a total weirdo, because what is wrong with him? This is not normal. It's weird. Anyways, though, so back to the fight. We see Kusakabe extending the barriers of his simple domain to reach Sukuna, and Sukuna is like, he increased the range of his domain to stop him from charging up curse energy to expand his technique's target. So Mei says that Kusakabe is able to bring his target to him by expanding the range of his domain instead of it just being a countermeasure, and he is able to intercept anyone that invades the simple domain automatically, and someone able to achieve grade 1 level sorcery without a curse technique, they're not to be taken lightly. Then we get this brilliant page of Kusakabe slashing up Sukuna, who does actually kind of look surprised, and wow, how the tables have turned. Sukuna's the one getting all slashed up. I love this panel, and I love this for Kusakabe. Nanami says that he doesn't know anyone that would be able to evade that, referring to what Kusakabe is doing right now. And he says that he knows one person who wouldn't need to, and that's Gojo. But we see that Kusakabe's sword has been broken. Well, I mean, the blade has been broken. So Kusakabe is like, well, I'm not out of options, about to throw hands. So he throws off his jacket and starts hand-to-hand combat and kicks Sukuna. And I gotta be honest, Kusakabe has never looked hotter than he does in this moment. Also, his kick sends Sukuna back pretty far, and he chases him down and continues the fight. So Kusakabe is like, this isn't like me. Why am I trying so hard? But he thinks of Yaga. Poor Yaga. Poor Yaga. He didn't deserve anything that happened to him. So he still owes something to Yaga for his nephew, but he feels indebted to Yaga and to protect the other sorcerers. He thinks Yaga wouldn't be mad at him for not wanting to put his life on the line, but he would look a little sad because they wouldn't be able to fight at each other's side. That hurts. Then Mei, Nanami, and Gojo say that the biggest reason they choose Kusakabe, to put it simply, is because he's kind. And because he's kind, he's not gonna give up. He's gonna be there, and he might not want to be there, but he's gonna do his best to protect people. So Kusakabe has his little honored one moment, And he thinks that if he dies, Sukuna will go after Miwa and the other players. He's just a big sweetie after all. And he says that the kids fought with their lives on the line, so what kind of adult would he be if he didn't do the same? He also calls out Miwa first, and it just like, I like that he wants to protect them. Oh, Kusakabe. I'm so glad he didn't die. Then Kusakabe uses new shadow style moonlight veil to repair his sword, and it probably isn't a reference to Elden Ring, but there is the moonlight veil katana in Elden Ring, so it has an ability to send out magic beams too, so... Okay, my bad, it's actually just called the moon veil katana, not the moonlight veil katana, but same idea. I saw it and I was like, Moonveil Katana, Elden Ring, Gege, are you an Elden Ring fan? Probably not, okay, probably referencing something else, but my brain went there. So Kusakabe aims for Sukuna's damaged heart, yay Maki, and Sukuna is like, you could not be more transparent right now. And Kusakabe is like, damn it. And then the next panel, he is on the ground all slashed up. And then, oh my god, the MVP of this whole arc, YUJI shows up to save Kusakabe, which is exactly what Sukuna would want. He's standing all creepily behind YUJI and is like, you're starting to get annoying. But YUJI is saved last second by an unexpected person, and Miguel is back from JJK0, someone we haven't seen since JJK0. And Sukuna is like, oh, so there's a new face, and Miguel is like, how do you not know who I am? And now he's going to fight Sukuna, and the comment says that he went toe to toe with Gojo. Did he though? And Gege has said that Miguel is strong, so... I mean, I wrote here I have no idea, but now that I've read the leaks, I can see a bit of what Miguel is capable of. And I gotta say, we really didn't see his potential in JJK0. We really did not see his potential because that was not what I was expecting out of him. But I'm liking him. People were kind of like seemingly kind of mad that Miguel showed up, but I think like they prepared, like they were preparing for something like this and they needed everyone they could. And, you know, Miguel is apparently very, very strong. So wanting to have him on their side totally makes sense. Also, they have like the whole like ghetto team that, you know, who's still alive anyways, that could still be around too. And obviously in the next chapter, LaRue is there. So it makes sense that Miguel, I wouldn't say Miguel was the first person I would think of showing up in this, but I could see him being there, you know? And I'm glad he was, because he's very entertaining. I'm glad Kusakabe's okay. I mean, he's not okay, but he's gonna be okay. Glad YUJI was okay. I was genuinely like, when I saw that, I was like, I actually got a little jump scared by a panel, and seeing Sukuna standing behind YUJI like that, I was like, no! But yes, luckily YUJI's alright, because he's been very helpful. But yeah, this was a great chapter for Kusakabe, a character that I always, whenever I watch other people's reactions, and look, like they're anime people, like I totally understand. They don't see Kusakabe as like a very good character. Like I see a lot of people just don't like him very much. Kusakabe is awesome. He's great. He's a realistic, good character. He is kind-hearted. He doesn't like being in danger. Who does? But when it comes down to it, he is a super good strategizer and is going to do what he can to protect people. And he cares about the students. He cares a lot about them, and he's trained a lot of them specially. So like, he's going to do what he can. I liked all these moments with the grade 1 sorcerers plus Gojo, explaining, you know, what Kusakabe is capable of and how he's just a kind soul. So it's just it was a good chapter for him. He lasted longer than I was expecting. Yeah, so let's talk about chapter 255, which hasn't actually really come out yet, just the leaks. So I will be back to talk about that now. Okay, so let's get into chapter 255. It was a good chapter. It was a really good chapter. A lot's happening, people being reintroduced, but definitely not where I was expecting it to go with Miguel showing back up, but we did it. We're here, and I'm glad. You know, he added a lot in this chapter. It was fun to see him. So we start this chapter off with Kusakabe being held by a gigantic hand, which is LaRue's technique, and we finally get to see it. Sukuna's like, oh, saving that teleporting boy must have been one of their techniques. Oh, also, LaRue and Miguel, very underrated characters. I'm glad they're showing back up in this story. Not what I was expecting. They're oddly deep and introspective, but I'm not even surprised as Geto followers that they would be like that and question a lot about the jujutsu world, so I'm not even that surprised. And I have to say, I really appreciated the use of the scenery in this chapter. The location was really nice, and the location in Africa where they were talking to Miguel was also really pretty. So YUJI has been saved, which is good. I was a little worried because he has been very helpful in this entire arc so far. And now we are in Africa, and LaRue is posing an idea to Miguel about fighting Sukuna, and Miguel is like, screw that. If he's tougher than Gojo, then it's just not going to be possible. That he is beyond the realm of monsters. How do you expect him to do something like that? And LaRue puts this all in like a cutesy way for some reason, saying that Sukuna is going to be all tuckered out from his fight with Gojo, and that they're just going to be lending a hand and finishing him off. Oh, LaRue. Oh my poor boy. So Miguel, the voice of reason in this chapter especially, is like, okay, as if he'd reached this state where he would be something as cutesy as tuckered out. Yuta is also there, just looking uncomfy most of the time, but he says that the mass merger between Tengen and Japan would not stop at Japan's borders. Like, this would be a problem outside Japan for real. And Miguel is like, even if a Godzilla-sized curse were to attack his homeland, that it would still be preferable to dealing with Sukuna. So he's not feeling it. He does not want to be involved at all. And all right, so this is Miguel's words. I'm just saying that. He says, do you Japanese people think that high-spirited black people will just survive anything? And he's like, I'm just going to pass on this one. Also, Miguel's outfit in this section, 10 out of 10. He's looking good. Miguel is like, well, Gojo should be here pleading himself to me. And aren't Japanese people supposed to be polite? Yuta's just getting to it, and he's like, should I prostrate myself? And Miguel gets all like hunched up in his chair and is like, oh, Yuta, you're scary. LaRue asks Yuta if just him and Miguel could have a talk. And Yuta leaves and he's like, I'm not even mad, but I'm sorry, Yuta, you just give off a vibe. There's just a vibe with you sometimes. It's unsettling. We've seen it before. Yuta's just whole demeanor can be creepy. LaRue and Miguel start their chat, and Miguel asks LaRue what he's going to do, and LaRue said that just like Miguel, all he wanted was to make Geto king. Miguel says that he's been following along because it was Geto, and Geto was just so loved by them. He was so loved. Miguel says that by babysitting Okatsu, which is kind of adorable, I can't lie, he's paid his dues for being let off the hook for Shinjuku, and that he has no stakes left in Japan. LaRue says that their whole group loved Geto, and Miguel is like, so, do you want to take revenge for what happened in Shibuya or take back Geto's body from Kenjaku? But LaRue wants to mourn Geto together the same way people would visit a grave, and they will blast a requiem to the heavens by giving their all in this fight. And of course, Miguel, the voice of reason here, is just like, first of all, Geto definitely went to hell. We're definitely going to hell, etc. But he agrees on certain conditions, and he's not fighting against Sukuna if Sukuna can use his domain. And he will only fight after Gojo and Yuta have lost, and the domain is inoperable. Like, Sukuna's domain is inoperable. So LaRue is like, oh, I guess I'm fighting too. And Miguel is like, the more friends, the better. We are back to the fight with Sukuna, and Miguel is happy because it seems Sukuna cannot use his domain, and LaRue says Gojo left them a gift, and Sukuna is severely weakened. His RCT is weak, he's missing an arm, he's missing, God, what else is he missing? And the other isn't suited for battle anymore. And he has an unhealed heart. Thank you, Maki, for that. Thank you. Say that they almost feel bad because they were left with the most delicious part of the fight. So Sukuna attacks, and we see LaRue using his technique, his gigantic hand, which is actually more complicated than I was expecting. He grabs Sukuna and forces him into a wall, but Sukuna slices the hand and Miguel shows up. And we see him dodging, dancing, and moving around Sukuna's slashes, which is pretty incredible. And he dodges a punch from Sukuna as well. LaRue's mega hand grabs him and he pulls himself away from the destruction. Very helpful, very useful part of your technique. And we learn that his technique is called heart catch. Adorable. Explains the heart nipples, kind of, I guess. I was always so intrigued by those. I just wanted, like, what? His technique can grab the target and the hand can be reinitialized an indefinite amount of times. And only 1/10 of the damage from that hand is transferred to LaRue's body, which is pretty amazing. So he can take a lot of hits as long as he's using that big old hand. And it makes LaRue a great help in a fight and helps with escaping and saving people. As we've seen, he has saved Kusakabe. But Sukuna is not impressed with the flavors of the technique and says if anyone here is impressive, it's Miguel. And we learn that his technique is called Hakuna Lana. I'm probably pronouncing that second half of that wrong. And the nice folks at TCB include a translation and meaning and origin. We love that. So Hakuna Lana, I'm trying, is from the Swahili language and can be translated as without curses. It seems to reference the ritualistic dance of the Maasai warriors, and it was used by young warriors to show their ability to make quick motions and jumps as a display of grace and dexterity, and also use movements helpful for hunting and fighting. So the beat etched onto Miguel's body expels curses and enhances his physical ability. So he is good to have around in this sort of fight. Maybe not just him, but having him around here, especially as like a distraction or a help when someone else is healing, you know, something like that, or also trying to fight Sukuna. Miguel is very, very useful. So now we are back in Africa again, and Gojo is here now, and he's Gojo looks so good, and he's saying Miguel's technique is like shooting off buffs and debuffs without a domain, and it's useful, but it's not scary. So Miguel is unsettled by how Gojo can see a technique without even having to ask about it, and Gojo makes a statement here which Miguel calls him out for. This is interesting. There's discourse about this at first, but he's saying that because 99% of sorcerers are Japanese, that if you were to add a cursed energy buff to these guys' physiques and muscle mass, which is crazy rare in Japan, the results are menacing. Again, Gojo's words there. Miguel calls out Gojo for painting him with a broad brush, and it's racist to assume these things. Miguel says he's not special because he's black. He's special because he's him. Good for you, Miguel. Just telling off Gojo. I think we love Gojo, but, you know, we remember sometimes that Gojo comes from a very, very sheltered life and sheltered way of thinking. He came from one of the big clans, and we have seen how they operate. They are not great. And, I mean, I think he's like the only one in his clan right now. I don't remember. But, yeah, Gojo is a very sheltered person who was born pretty much the strongest. Like, he probably doesn't even know that much about people outside the jujutsu world. So him making ignorant comments is not very surprising. But, you know, the good thing about it is he immediately backed down and apologized. So that's good. I think Gojo is trying his best to put together a plan for the survival of all his students. So anyways, Yuta asks if that menacing statement refers to Gojo as well, and Gojo says that if him and Miguel were to fight like hand-to-hand combat and just curse energy, that Gojo would win the marathon. He would win long term, but Miguel would win the sprint. He gets it done quick, basically. So we're back to the fight now. Miguel grabs onto Sukuna and punches his unhealed heart and elbows it. And then, oh my god, let me just get there. Oh, you know. I see him and my day is good. Everything's good. Everything's sunshine and butterflies because Chozo shows up, and I want to cry every time he shows up. I'm like literally about to cry. Oh my god, I have a problem. So the most amazing, beautiful character, perfect boy shows up. And Choso is back. He is using the setting around him, which is great. He shoots piercing blood at Sukuna, and Sukuna dodges and fires back a slash at Choso, but Choso just tisks it. And Yuji fucking bursts in from the ceiling and attacks Sukuna at full force, brings Sukuna down to his knees, and here he's just like, oh, you're still here. Cool. So the narrator says that in order to activate the world-severing dismantle, the hand sign used for Malevolent Shrine and Matin was required. I may have butchered the pronunciation of that too. And good old TCB, just including the meaning for that as well. I don't need to read this all here. I will put it on the screen, but this is what they included. And honestly, it's so great that they are including this. I don't think it's included in the official version, so I just appreciate them a lot. There's also a translation here for what heart catch means, and yeah, just a nice little page there to have. So we get some explanation here, and Sukuna was forced to impose a binding vow for the activation conditions for all preceding uses of the move in order to use the big world cut on Gojo. And since one of his arms was not functional, this was also before his transformation into full form Sukuna with the 4 arms. So during the Gojo battle, he only possessed 2 arms, like, a regular person. And if one was gone, he can't perform any of these hand signs. Obviously, he has 1 hand. So presently, on top of Inmaten hand sign and the chance being required, the trajectory of the technique has to be specified via his palm. But then bitch Maki shows back up, and it, just like I knew she would, and cuts off another one of Sukuna's hands. And Yuji's like, Maki's back! Even after eating a black flash from Sukuna, girl's got a smile on her face. And now with Maki, LaRue, Miguel, Choso, and Yuji feels confident in them being able to win. And Sukuna cannot complete his hand signs with only his right arms, and his RCT is still weak. Yuji feels confident that they can win, but of course, we know in this moment when they feel confident they can win, that's when the worst possible things happen in this story, at least in this arc. Because Sukuna lands a black flash, another one, his second one on LaRue. First one on Maki, second one on LaRue. Why LaRue? Just randomly. Also just feels oddly personal. Yeah, and we are reminded that Gojo regained his RCT output after landing his second black flash. And the chapter ends with this ominous feeling, and Sukuna smiles because he has most likely regained his reverse curse technique, and that can mean a lot of horrible things for them. If Sukuna was able to heal his hands, to heal his heart, they are back to square one, pretty much. Even if he can't use his domain, he can use the world slash. Before, when I thought he was using it, he wasn't using it, not what he was using like against like Kashimo or something, or against Gojo. Wasn't the same. So I hope that's right. Feel free to correct that, but I'm pretty sure that's right. It was one of those chapters where at the end I was like, this is great, but something bad's gonna happen, and then something bad, and he looks all smug at the end there, Sukuna. He's all excited because, well, not even excited, he's just happy. He's just happy that he's, able to do so. So yeah, and now let's get into, oof boy, chapter 256 and 257 pop the fuck off. Okay, let's get into chapter 256 right now. Okay, so before I get into chapter 256, I got this, finally. It finally came out, at least in Canada. It took forever because the Kashimo cover came out, or the Kashimo volume came out in last November. Finally, I got the Maki cover. It's beautiful. I love it so much. Always having the physical volumes is just like, I don't know, it's a whole other experience getting to see it in person. I just love it so much. But anyways, love to have it. Next volume cover is Yuki, and I'm even more excited for that one. So anyways, let's get into chapter 256. So for this chapter and from now on, but I'm going to try doing, and it's not a skill I've ever possessed in my life, is to be more succinct and paraphrase maybe a little bit more, because my chapter reviews can be pretty long per chapter, and maybe it's, making me a bit slower at editing. So from now on, I'm just gonna get through things a bit faster. I don't need to mention every single line. People know how to read. I want to talk about what I find important. But the thing is, with this chapter, everything's kind of important because we got a huge lead up, and now this chapter is a massive lead up to the next chapter. So we start off with our obligatory Gojo scene. Now that he's dead, we're getting to see him a lot more. What? I don't know. And Gojo's just sitting. It looks like he's not, but it looks like he's just sitting alone in some decrepit room. Also, once again, the art in this, especially this panel, is incredible. Like, look at those ceiling pipes. They are amazing. And now, I'm sure he has assistants doing his backgrounds, but like, whoever that assistant is, give them a raise, because those pipes are crazy. Anyways, so we start this chapter with the Gojo scene, and he explains he can't use Black Flash at will, and why the definition for how Black Flash work is a bit too simple. If it were that simple, he would be able to use it at will. And he's saying that, for example, if he loaded up his fist with cursed energy and threw a punch, the cursed energy will either strengthen his fist, or the cursed energy will crash into the opponent, or option 3 would be if both were to happen. So this little drawing here is helpful to kind of show what Gojo's talking about, because it can be a little confusing. Also, I gotta point out the way Gojo's sitting as well. He's just such a weird dude. I don't know. It's such a weird little drawing of him, but he looks adorable. So Gojo is saying that there are more factors included with Black Flash, and not anyone can control the third type except for him. Also, the blend changes depending on environment. Things like your physical condition and the opponent's cursed energy are also factors. We get to see Yuji through the blindfold, and how what I think people believe is how... Wait, no, that's Gojo. Huh. Yeah, that's Gojo there. So I thought it was Yuji he was looking at through the blindfold, but no, that's Gojo. Okay, interesting. And then we get to see this like panel of Gojo, who I thought was Yuji at first. So I guess Gojo is kind of like talking to himself. I have no idea. Actually, who is he talking to? We still don't know. I don't know who Gojo is talking to. This is a live reaction of me rereading the chapter and being like, wait, what the fuck? But Gojo says that he thinks that there's a connection to temperature and humidity, since Black Flash is a spatial phenomenon. And basically, there is no correct answer on how to release a Black Flash, is what we're learning from this. Not a lot is cleared up from this, just that it isn't as straightforward and simple as we think it is. Gojo says that when he's really fighting, he incorporates his technique into his strikes, and ultimately it comes down to luck for him. And Nanami, a grade 1 sorcerer, has a higher consecutive Black Flash record than he does. But Gojo says that in general, he tends to end fights faster than Nanami, so there's less time for him to land those consecutive Black Flashes. But then we get a note there at the end that he was surpassed by Yuji in this aspect as well. So take that, Gojo, but also he would be so proud of his students for surpassing him. That's what he's wanted all along and believed in. It's nice to see Gojo's wishes carried on through the students. He would be so proud of Yuji, and it wouldn't even be an ego thing for Gojo. I think he would just be proud. He would just be proud. So we're back to the fight. All right. So we're back to the fight now, where it ended in the last chapter with Sukuna landing his second Black Flash and it feeling ominous and like, what the fuck's gonna happen now? And we see Sukuna just radiating energy now that he's landed 2 Black Flashes. And since Gojo got his RCT back after landing 2 Black Flashes, they're worried that he has gained his back too. Miguel is like, I gotta get the hell out of here. Maki recognizes that LaRue and Miguel are the potential backups that Yuta had mentioned. And my beautiful #1 gorgeous boy Choso just looks so fucking over it. And he says that Miguel and LaRue must be allies to Jujutsu High, and he has to help put Sukuna in the dirt before he regains his RCT. I love Choso. Oh, this chapter with Choso, he really is the star for me. I know it's Yuji, but to me it's always Choso. Yuji and Choso and Maki attack Sukuna together. Choso does this beautiful kick and kicks Sukuna back, or kicks a rock at him. I'm not quite sure what he's doing there. I think he kicks him back. I don't know what he's doing, but he is serving right now, okay? Beautiful form on that kick. Reminds me a lot of his girlfriend Yuki kicking Garuda around. So Yuji is able to trap Sukuna against the wall, and Choso attacks from above. And you know, as usual, Choso is looking gorgeous, and friggin' Sukuna dodges that one as well. Maki is chasing him and is able to stab Sukuna, but because she really is her, she really gets the job done, you know. However, Sukuna and Maki continue their fight, with them appearing to use the air itself as footing because they're really just that fast, which Choso points out. Sukuna is like oddly overjoyed to be fighting Maki as usual and lands another black flash on this poor woman. And now it's his third black flash. He's landed 2 of those on Maki. Like, what the fuck? This poor woman. Also, she points out that the output of his base slashes are also increasing. Luckily, Choso comes in this second and probably is saving Maki from going through worse and uses Supernova. Sukuna sends out slashes but moves faster than them to get behind Choso. Throws my boy into a wall, but Choso just braces himself because Sukuna lands another black flash, but on Choso this time. Not okay. That is not okay with me. But also, I gotta say, Gege, thank you so much for this panel of Choso. I love unhinged Choso. It's the hottest thing in the world. He is being punched yet again by Sukuna, and my man is smiling. He is beautiful. He is everything. He is gorgeous. He is able to take a hold of Sukuna, kind of keeping him there in place and using his blood to save him and also sort of keep Sukuna there in place, using his blood as armor. So Choso, once again, proving not easy to kill. Definitely not easy to kill. Has fought Kenjaku and Sukuna. Has not died yet. Knock on wood. Knock on wood. He will not. I feel confident in that, to be honest. I believe in Choso living at this point. So Choso keeping Sukuna in place like that helped Yuji to be able to land a serious punch on Sukuna's face. And Choso, once again, number one boy, worries about Yuji, saying that even though he's fired up through those black flashes, that his blows will keep weakening his cursed energy output and his control over his body. So Choso cheers on Yuji and very slyly hands him a bit of his hardened blood because Yuji can't do it himself, that Yuji will use later. So Miguel is taking care of LaRue, who got hit very hard with the black flash in the last chapter. And Miguel is like, you know, we've done enough, let's go. But LaRue is persistent and says that there is more that he can do still. Yuji and Sukuna are fighting, and Yuji is able to use that blood that Choso gave him to fire off a piercing blood attack right to Sukuna's face. And Choso, perfect boy, says that Yuji can't use convergence just yet, so he has to help him out. And that's why he has to keep looking after him. Yuji uses piercing blood that Sukuna is only able to partially dodge. It gets a bit of his face. Yuji creates distance between the two before he gets hit. And we get this really intense, foreboding looking panel of Yuji, you know, right when he's getting serious. You know, I mean, he's been serious, but this is next level. He is in the zone, bitch, and you know what that means. You know what that means when Yuji is in the zone. And the narrator says, just as Mahito had sensed from Yuji in Shibuya, Sukuna felt the premonition of an oncoming black flash. But LaRue comes through here with his technique and is able to also catch the heart of his opponent. Like, with the hand he catches things, but he also can catch the heart of opponents. And Sukuna gets all these little heart eyes, and he knows that black flash is coming, but he's drawn away to looking at LaRue, and his awareness has shifted from the brat, as he would say. And right in that moment of distraction, Yuji has unleashed his potential with a single blow beneath scattering sparks of black, and Itadori Yuji awakens. The chapter ends. The hype is real. We are here. It is going down now. I have never doubted Yuji for a second that I have been into the series, and the payoff is happening. Yuji, I've never doubted him. People have been doubting him for so long, and I'm like, you just, there's no patience. Just be patient. My God, people want payoffs to happen next chapter. Things need time to build up. Yuji has not been a sorcerer for very long in his life. And next chapter, we learn so much about how Yuji was doomed from, from birth, from from conception, obviously. Just the idea of Yuji happening, he was doomed. And he is doing everything he can. He never, did Kenjaku ever plan for Choso and Yuji to actually get close to each other? Probably not. I mean, that wasn't really mentioned. He probably expected maybe it could happen, but once again, Yuji is using something else to his advantage. And like he said, he will do anything to save Megumi, and he is doing that now. I mean, I don't know how much of this is actually hitting Megumi, but he is doing everything. He said he was going to do everything, and he goddamn is. And I believe in him. Let's get into one of the best chapters. One of the best chapters. Chapter 257. So this chapter review will be a bit different. Usually I have a ton of notes and all that, but I think I've read a lot. I've read this chapter a few times now. I'm doing this off the cuff. I can do this, okay? I can do this. I'm usually reading notes, so why not just read the panels themselves? So we start chapter 257 with a bit of a flashback. I'm saying black flash. Oh my god. With Uraume and Sukuna, when Sukuna was in his Megami form, I guess. Uraume is asking Sukuna, what's the deal with Yuji? I'm assuming this is right after Sukuna fought Maki and Yuji, and then they laughed at Yuji's sad little expression together. They're like, oh, look at him, ha ha ha. Anyways, so Uraume is Itadori Yuji, what exactly is he? Sukuna says that he's Kenjaku's child, but he can't tell Uraume exactly whose body that Kenjaku was in at the time. Uraume says, I felt something from him deeply reminiscent of you, Sukuna, before they laughed at his hilarious expression. It's not simply the leftover dregs of your power, but closer to an empty husk actively retaining elements of yourself. Sukuna just says, blame Kenjaku. He wouldn't have a kid for no reason. And once again, Kenjaku, dead, but not forgotten. He wasn't dead right in this flashback, but he is just such a weird person. This family tree is messed up, for real. Anyways, Sukuna says, the one Kenjaku coupled up with, so weird, was likely a fragment of myself reincarnated. Weird. Our souls are the same. And Uraume is like, a fragment of you, huh? And Sukuna says that he used to be a twin, but he rejected such fate. Forced by my own mother's blight, I consumed a fragment of myself on the brink of starvation. His soul bounced around aimlessly until eventually it fell into Kenjaku's hands. So we can get a lot from this. Sukuna ate his twin in the womb. This is a thing where Gege's been planning this for a long time, because Sukuna has been calling himself a cursed child and a curse from when he was born. And we know with twins in this series that they are cursed when they are twins. We've seen it with Maki and Mai. And it's so cool that we're getting to see this yet again. It wasn't just between... Actually, it's funny, I have the Maki cover here. We're not just seeing it one time with them. We're seeing it again with the main antagonist and the protagonist of this series. And when it was spoiler night, it was revealed, but it wasn't right, the translations, that Yuji and Sukuna were twins, which honestly I'm glad they're not, because it's a little cliche, maybe just a little bit. I'm glad that it didn't go exactly that route. So the twin soul got into Kenjaku's hands, which he's so weird. Now, Sukuna's saying this while he's yawning, so he's obviously not interested in this conversation, but he's saying, you know this already, but Itadori Yuji was bred as a player in the calling games, having sealed one of my fingers. That much was likely necessary to ensure his strength as a vessel. So from birth, Yuji has had one of Sukuna's fingers already. I don't want to say in him. That feels like a weird sentence, but that's what it is. Uraume says, is that so? Does this mean within Itadori Yuji lies a latent potential equal to Sukuna? And oh my gosh, we all gasp. So we're back to the fight. And honestly, this little panel of them in the hallway there reminds me of Choso versus Yuji in the bathroom. And I love that sort of callback. Sukuna looks serious. Yuji looks serious. Sukuna looks mad, to be honest. So the fight starts. They're throwing hands, and Yuji lands another black flash. I don't know if it's right at Sukuna's heart, but it looks near there. Sukuna looks surprised, and then lands another black flash. He's like, Yuji, just so beautiful. And Sukuna looks annoyed and kind of pushes Yuji back, but Yuji uses this new form of Sukuna's technique. We have seen he's now something we have seen hoping for since the beginning of the story, where Gojo's like, eventually you'll be able to use Sukuna's technique, but he is using like a more modernized version where we can see papers like cutting a pattern on something. So it's similar, extremely similar to Sukuna's technique, but more modern and something that we can visually see. And Sukuna is like, he can use it. And I don't know why Sukuna looks oddly impressed here. Maybe he's just annoyed, but it's an interesting panel. And he thinks to himself that there are currently 2 curse techniques residing within Itadori Yuji. The first, blood manipulation, engraved by absorbing the curse wound paintings, which is kind of also gross, but Yuji said he's gonna do what he's gonna do. So he's consumed them. We'll never see them. Numbers 4 through 9. The second one was drawn out by the awakened state achieved through Black Flash, the technique engraved upon the reincarnated body of Ryomen Sukuna Shrine. Also, apparently the official translations just are butchering this, so I'm glad I'm reading TCB. So Yuji can use Sukuna's technique. He uses it to cut this perfect line in a pillar and throw it at Sukuna. Plus, like, this technique plus Yuji's already physical capabilities just makes him so much more of a monster. Sukuna is able to like dismantle it, but then Yuji grabs Sukuna's leg and you see those cut patterns. You see the little cut pattern on Sukuna's leg, so you know. But then you see Sukuna is about to use his technique, slashes Yuji's face while he has his leg. But then Yuji lands another black flash on Sukuna's side. And Sukuna thinks that it's with his leg taken clean off, it's the same technique, yet the era and the sorcerer are using it brings out a sizable disparity. How foolish. A freshly learned technique means low output. What's much more troublesome are these blows. So he's talking about Black Flash too. So coupled with blood manipulation, physical prowess, being able to use a version of Sukuna's technique, and the black flashes. Like, the black flashes are causing him the most problems right now. So then we get a flashback to Gojo when he's talking to everyone, and we see that we didn't get to see the moment where Ino wanted to talk to Gojo, and now we're finally getting to see that scene. So Gojo says that you want us to let you use Nanami's cursed tool. Do whatever you want, but why are you even asking us? And Ino's like, well, you're Nanami's old friends, or you've known him the longest, so it feels right to ask you. And Gojo's like, huh? Our obligatory Gojo scene. You saw him way more since we graduated. He had that whole stint away from school after all. And Ino is like, I can't believe they're like so casual about me using his weapon. Shoko says, we were already on a 3-year system back then, even though they're a technical college. And Ichiji says, I happen to think that the weapon is best in your hands, Ino. Oh, so sweet. And Gojo says that we mean it. Nanami trusted you more than anyone else. So sweet. Oh, Gojo. Just protecting the students, you know. He cares so much about them. So Ino is still in it. So Ino uses his auspicious beast, Ryu. And Ryu is awesome. I think Ino's technique is really cool, and it's so cool to see. So it sends Sukuna back, and oh my gosh, this is crazy. But then Sukuna, of course, cuts the poor beast apart and goes after Ino. But Ino still has the cursed tool. While he's distracting Sukuna, Yuji is able to get behind him and use Black Flash yet again. And while Ino is just like, well, shit, this is it for me. Sukuna has to turn around like that and defend himself from Yuji's Black Flash. And he says, this brat, he's been chaining Black Flashes like it's nothing. Does he intend to climb up to my level? So Yuji has used several Black Flashes in this chapter alone. And it's wild. So then we see that Ino, he's done. He's finally out of he's done a lot. He's done so much. I'm so proud of him. And his technique is, you know, almost gone. A lot of his beasts have been destroyed. Yeah, so a lot of his beasts have been destroyed. And he says, I'm sorry, Nanami-san, this is way out of my league. Which is fair. He wasn't even a grade 1 sorcerer yet. And he did so much, so I'm so proud of him. So Sukuna, with his weird little smile, I don't know what's going on with him. But he is ready to attack Yuji. He tries to punch Yuji. Yuji grabs his arm and throws him into a wall. And Sukuna thinks he's completely unfazed by my combination of strikes and slashes. He doesn't even care. And we see Yuji is being slashed. His face is being slashed. And he's still going. He is still punching. And he lands another black flash. Oh my god. Why am I doing this? And Sukuna grabs his face and slashes up Yuji's eye area exactly where Sukuna's mask is, which is interesting. And Yuji lands another fucking black flash. And Sukuna says, you goddamn brat. He's fucking pissed. He is so mad. And it's weird to see him actually this mad. He doesn't get this mad this often, but he is angry. But you know, I said it was over for Ino. It's not over. Ino throws down Nanami's sword and he says, you know what? For someone on my level, I think I did a pretty good job. And bitch, you did. I love you, Ino. And Ino just says, kick his ass. And Yuji lands another black flash. He lands another one on Sukuna's back. And the chapter ends. And with the note that says, don't just rival the king, surpass him. The chapter ends. Incredible. Now, I'm not sure if it mentions it in the chapter, but I think people mention in the spoilers. The one coupled... Okay, so when it said at the beginning of the chapter that the one coupled with Kenjaku was likely a fragment of myself reincarnated. So we have learned that, and I didn't point it out there, that when Sukuna says the one Kenjaku coupled up with was likely a fragment of myself reincarnated, he is talking about Yuji's dad, Jin Itadori. And that is... So, it wasn't that they were twins. It's just that Yuji is... Yuji is Sukuna's nephew. So, Sukuna hating Yuji is just so interesting. Because he's his uncle. Like, what? I wasn't expecting him to be the uncle here. And an uncle that really fucking hates his nephew. But yeah, that is the end of chapter 257. And I have to wait for chapter 258 now. But that was one of the best chapters in this series so far, in my opinion. That was honestly fantastic. So amazing. I think Gege did such a good job. And there's probably so many moments in the story where this was talked about, but not like revealed, and we could have maybe seen it, but now it's all clicking, you know. We're gonna find those moments, and like when Sukuna calls himself a cursed child, we're like, he was a twin, that makes sense. But yeah, anyways, I'm going to talk about chapter 258 now, because this is gonna be a very long chapter review. All right, chapter 258, go. So, chapter 258. I am not going off the cuff on this one. I have, oh my god, I have pages of notes. I don't know how to, being succinct is not my forte. All right, but this chapter is wild, so let's get into it. So, this chapter is riding off the high and excitement that we got in the last couple of chapters with the whole awakening of Yuji, and honestly, I was falling for it a bit there. I was starting to feel some hope again. But of course, this chapter, it's got to bring me back down to earth a little. But for the most part, we are kind of getting a flashback, learning about something going on with the sorcerers and their training. That takes up the majority of this chapter. Kind of. Half of the chapter. So we start with this ominous explanation from the narrator. They say that after his 2 black flashes, Gojo was able to establish a unique reversed curse technique. What set this relay apart was the operation and burden of the technique being dispersed throughout separate regions of the brain. So during the Gojo and Sukuna fight, the burden on Gojo's brain, it was like immense. Like we saw how much of a toll it was taking on him when he was restoring his RCT. And we also know that where the curse technique takes place in the brain is just one spot in the brain. So everything being dispersed, So with his RCT traveling through different parts of his brain due to Black Flash, Sukuna was able to restore his hands, or at least he should have been able to. That's where Yuji comes in. The amazing Itadori Yuji was able to stop this regen from occurring due to the 7 Black Flashes that he landed. And also, Yuji was able to specifically strike the boundary between Megumi and Sukuna's soul, which answers my question from a few chapters ago about whether Megumi was receiving all the brunt of Yuji's attacks here, because I feel like Yuji would hate that, but of course Yuji was prepared for this. Of course he was. I'm not even surprised. But this onslaught from Yuji trampled Sukuna's hope of regaining his RCT. Take that. So then we cut to LaRue and Miguel is complimenting LaRue on being a master of his craft, but then senses this aura and sees the beginning of something sinister taking place. And he's just like, you gotta be shitting me. Like, you gotta be kidding me at this point. Of course something else happens. And we get a whole page spread of Sukuna's domain, which is on it. It's horribly disturbing. It is, it looks so scary and horrible, and I love it so much. And it looks a lot different from when we last seen it. It looks deformed, disgusting. It looks dirty, and it looks just, it kind of looks like his mask too, on his face. So there's also that. And I have to say that, like, underneath part kind of looks like the beginning of a spinal cord, which is interesting. Kind of looks like a brain with the spinal cord attached. And it also kind of looks like what the merger looked like, or what the merger was suggested to look like. I have to say, I was asleep. I usually wake up in the middle of the night for the spoiler leaks that came out, but I slept through the night for the leaks for chapter 258. But apparently people were saying that this was a cross between Megumi's domain and Sukuna's domain, but that wasn't right. So I'm gonna, that makes sense. It doesn't look like a cross of Megumi's and his domain to me. But yeah, interesting. So the king's domain, traveling along sparks of black, returned to his master. By altering the hand signs and utilizing a part of the brain unaffected by infinite void, Sukuna employed his curse technique alongside his barrier technique. Amidst a maelstrom of uncertainties and impromptu binding vows, Sukuna's rush of black flashes allowed his malevolent shrine to burst forth once more with no loss of output or range. Oh, and it's destroying everything. It's destroying everything around. It is taking down everything around it. And May's poor crows, they're always going through it. So we cut to a flashback of the month of training, and Hikari says that whoever wants to fight has to have RCT or some kind of anti-domain technique. There's the falling blossom emotion and simple domain. And of course, there's the exception of Maki, who possesses no cursed energy. My beautiful perfect boy Choso says that he believes that him and Yuji can manage with RCT, but he's curious in how Hikari, Shoko, and Yuta are able to compensate for blood loss when regenerating. Hikari and Yuta are both just like, I don't know, I'm on autopilot. I do it by instinct. They don't really have an explanation for how they can use RCT to compensate for that. But Shoko gives some explanation. She says that there are people who can use RCT but can't heal other people, and one reason is the fundamental difference in use. Like, healing yourself is one thing, being in tune with your body and soul, that's one thing, but healing someone else's body is totally different. There are cases where the cursed energy of the one healing rejects the process, and cases where the cursed energy of the one being healed doesn't respond to the conversion, and the efficacy of the treatment it's often case by case, so it's not a total cure-all. It is that not everyone can be healed the same. It really depends on the situation. So my smart, intelligent, beautiful boy Choso says that that's what he thought, and his body allows him to convert cursed energy into blood. It was Choso's idea for Yuji to absorb the other death wound paintings, so that he could gain a body capable of that alongside a cursed technique. My beautiful boy Choso, just showing them again, just showing them. He's so smart. He's so helpful. I love him. I love Choso. Oh. But that's not all. Their bodies allow them to compensate for the technical aspects of the technique. So the main limiting factor behind RCT, the immense cursed energy expense, doesn't apply to them, or so Choso would believe. Shoko says that means the hurdle for them learning it is much lower than everyone else. And that's him. That's my number one boy, Choso. That's my guy. But then Choso says that he would like to do some switch training with someone that can do RCT. But Yuji and I in this situation are both like, switch training? What the heck's that? We go to a conversation that's happening. Time to learn from the freaking MVP of this whole arc, YUJI, who has become one of the most helpful and useful characters in the entire series. So his technique is teleportation of targets, and if he's with them, he can transport you to a place or a person he's previously marked. Yuji is like, I see. I don't get it. Like, remember that season 1 Yuji? That's what this is reminding me of. YUJI says that we've thought of the body and the soul as separate entities. If the body is the box, the soul is the contents. Think of the box as a person's birthday present. We can't swipe the contents of our own accord. However, if you get the permission of the individual who has the box, their contents can be taken. So basically, he can swap the soul of 2 marked individuals. YUJI and Choso look at each other in some weird kind of angry way. In hindsight, YUJI was definitely getting annoyed with Yuji, and then in turn, Choso was getting angry at YUJI getting angry at Yuji. That's at least my interpretation here. But Yuji says that it reminds him of Mahito, and wouldn't the shape of that person's body and soul be stretched if they were swapped? But YUJI is like, it's alright, I can swap contents without opening the box, and no one can tell whether or not the contents of an unopened box have been tampered with. YUJI just, literally, if you had asked me when season 2 is coming out, or like when I was reading the Shibuya arc, if YUJI was going to be one of the most helpful characters of the series, I would have been like, you're lying to me. What? Like, you're lying. He can't be. There's no way. This is just Mei-Mei's weird little brother. No, he is genuinely so helpful. And also, this is how we learn how Yuta said that they cheated. This is how their training went. And they said that they cheated. It's because they could switch souls, and that also explains how we saw Kusakabe and Yuji's in each other's body. We thought it was some technique from Yuji, but it was actually YUJI's technique. So there's so many combinations. And here he says, or he's about to say that he can only change 2 mark. You can only swap bodies twice in a month, so they only have 2. There's so many possibilities with this ability that can take place. It's insane. So back to it. Kusakabe tells Yuji that his growth as a sorcerer has been tremendous and asks him why he thinks that is. And Yuji I love Yuji so much. I love that he still has these like little silly moments. He thinks that it's innate talent, but Kusakabe says that it's Sukuna. And if you do certain movements over and over, it becomes muscle memory. So he's going to do switch training with Yuji, so Yuji can learn his cursed energy manipulation and learn simple domain. He says Sukuna operated in his body, so his body remembers high special grade level jujutsu. He can thank Sukuna for his tremendous growth. Thanks, Sukuna, but also you're horrible. Hakari says that there's a binding vow preventing simple domain being taught to outsiders of the new Shadow School, but Mei-Mei says that it's been taken care of. And why does she look so happy? I don't really know how she did that. I always assume it has to do with money, like she paid someone to do it, so I'm not sure. Yeah, so and then YUJI says that you can swap twice in a month. That's what YUJI says. You can swap twice in a month. So something I was a little bit worried about after filming this was that YUJI said that you could swap souls twice per one person. And please consider your pairings wisely. I was just confused afterwards. I was like, does that just mean one person can swap into one body and then swap back, and that counts as the swapping twice? But Kusakabe clears that up before that, saying, you'll swap with me first. So I was questioning myself there after recording that maybe Yuji can only swap once, but like that one time he's swapping into Kusakabe, then back into his own body. So does that count as the twice, or is it just once? But Kusakabe is saying you'll swap with me first. That kind of hammers home that they can do they can swap with 2 people. So okay, that's what I'm thinking. So I wonder, because Choso says he wanted to swap with someone who had RCT. So I'm wondering who Choso swapped with. You know what? Tell me your theories. I would love to hear it. My opinion is that Choso swapped with Yuta. That is what I think. I think they could both benefit from learning from each other, and Yuta has like so much cursed energy. I just feel like it would be smart to swap with him. I'm wondering, okay, now the crazy pants like me, did anyone swap with Gojo? Because there's a lot you can learn from Gojo. And Gojo pretty much knew everything in the book that we saw against Sukuna. He had everything going from there. It wouldn't surprise, Gojo definitely knew those things beforehand. There's no surprise there to me. But I'm wondering if anyone swapped with Gojo. Because like that would be a huge, I haven't seen him in any of these. So I'm just wondering who, we know Yuji swapped with Kusakabe, but I'm wondering who else he was swapped with, because it says 2. There has to be a reason Gege says it's twice a month. There has to be a reason. We are missing one for Yuji. There's someone I'm not sure of yet, unless they have mentioned it before, or we have seen it. We know Yuji has taken in the Death Wound painting, so he doesn't need to switch with Choso. There's no point in something like that. So he switches with Kusakabe to gain Simple Domain. But I'm so curious, who is that other person that Yuji swapped with? And like in Choso, like I'm wondering who swapped with who? Like who swapped with who here? I feel like someone definitely would swap with Shoko. Because like if you like learn RCT on someone else, I feel like that would be helpful. If they can even do that. I don't know, there's just so many possibilities now that we've learned Wiwi's technique. That is just so cool. It's kind of similar to LaRue in a way where LaRue's technique was heart catch, where he has like the giant hand that he can use and he can like grab you physically, but also metaphorically he can catch your heart. So there's the body and soul thing happening again. So we're seeing, it's so cool. We're seeing all this like played out in different ways. But anyways, let's get back to it. We cut back to the fight. The domain has been expanded, and all of this context in the flashback pays off because we see Yuji using his simple domain and Sukuna's terrifying domain up in the air, just like destroying everything around it. But we see his domain, it looks like it's bleeding. And it's not doing too great, and Eugene can tell that the domain is not complete and that there has to be an opening so that he just needs to endure what's happening right now. And it's narrator time. Yuji was correct. Sukuna made no attempt at lowering the complexity of his domain, typical Sukuna, and offered no restraint to output or effective range. By enveloping his domain in an outer shelled barrier, of course he did, the binding valve that allowed an escape route disappeared. So he's like compensating, he's compensating for things here, for anything that was a problem with that he used because of a binding vow. He's compensating with something else. He's making it so it appears it has like no holes in it, basically. Also, I see him there using Gojo's Infinite Void hand sign. I see that. Just to add to the disrespect of it all, he's using Gojo's hand sign. I don't really know what it adds or why, but he's trying different hand signs right now, and he's trying different things, so it's just right now to me it's just the disrespect. Outer shell barrier, the binding vow that allowed an escape route, disappeared, which resulted in not only a narrowed range, but also his domain's operation. So he just makes everything so convoluted and complicated. Within this materialized landscape, the sure effect would activate. He also took Maki into account as well, the bastard, because it would have been impossible to seize Maki, and we've seen how she can operate in a domain. But in Sukuna's current state, he can't maintain such a high-level domain for so long, and it would take 99 seconds. And we see a panel of just utter destruction happening throughout the city, and they need to bear it for 99 seconds. So Yuji is bearing it, and then Miwa steps in to help Maki with her simple domain, which is a great call. I'm sure it was supposed to be Kusakabe, but I'm glad it was Miwa. She's being helpful. People wanted to write her off, but you know what? No, Miwa is doing something, and I'm so glad. Ino is still around. Ino's still around. He has simple domain as well. He's hanging on. And then my sweet number one boy Choso. He's bearing it too, but he's just calling it for Yuji, and he looks so scared. He's so worried. kind of should be though, because Yuji's simple domain is starting to break, it's starting to fail, and he starts getting cut up like crazy. His foot is cut right off, but he's able to reattach it like Choso could do with his limbs in his fight against Kenjaku. But suddenly the slashes just stop, and Yuji's feeling some hope, thinking that they've endured it, but he looks up and sees that Sukuna is about to use his flames, and he says, "Furnace open." And that's the end of the chapter. Editor note saying, "The flames of certain death roar forth." Great! Love it! Not feeling any hope again. Here we are yet again. But yeah, so that's the end. He's saying furnace open. I believe furnace was what we weren't hearing before when it was like censored out, and it makes sense. Sukuna's, all of his abilities are related to cooking or kitchens or whatever somehow. So him saying furnace open, he's getting ready to char everyone up, roast them up, char them. You know, he's about to cook. He's about to cook everyone. I'm really scared for everyone in the next chapter. I think Yuji will live. I said in another chapter, I was like, I don't think Choso is gonna die, but now I'm worried about Choso. I'm worried about everyone. I'm getting this out before the chapter leaks come out, so I won't know here, but it feels very foreboding, and I'm very like, this feels really bad. This scene's really bad. He stopped his domain and went straight for this, and that's the thing, is we heard from Uraume a while ago that Sukuna, he was never really trying that hard at many points. Like, he still like kind of matched the energy that was around him with the strength that was around him. But with what Yuji's been doing, it kind of feels like he's forced to do more now. We're seeing more of what Sukuna can do. That almost makes me feel like he's almost out of it, you know, like he's getting close to, it's not like desperation, but it's like he's running out of things to do here. But you know what? When he uses flames, it's never a good sign. Usually something horrible happens when the flames are involved. So, furnace open. Interesting. There's so much we can take from that. But this chapter review is already super long. So yeah, that's probably all I'm going to say for now. Very nervous for all those characters. Please don't burn up Maki again. She's been through enough. Please save Maki and Choso. I mean, save Ino and Yuji. I think Yuji somehow will be fine. He's got some kind of plot armor. But I'm just worried about Choso. I just want him to get the fuck out of there at this point. Just please. But yeah, that's pretty much all I have to say. Hope you enjoyed this really, really long chapter review. It's definitely over an hour. Probably won't be doing it like this again. We'll be trying to do 2 chapters at a time. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed this. I will include chapters so you can, I would hope at this point you would know this, but I will include chapters in the video where you can skip around per chapter. Yeah, it's been a lot of work, but it's been a lot of fun editing. So yeah, thank you so much for watching. I will see you in the next chapter review. Thank you for, if you watched all of them, shit, good for you. I wish I could do that one thing that's like, if you watch all of them, comment this unique thing. But if you watched all of them, comment something you like about Choso. You know, tell me something you like about Choso. That'll be the I know you at least watched this chapter, or maybe all of them. Comment something about Choso. That will make my heart happy as well. But yeah, thank you so much for watching, and yeah, have a good day. Bye.